Alright, so welcome back to our next episode of our investor series, and today we're going to talk about this topic: what happens to your investment property at the age of a retirement, and hope that you enjoy this episode. Check it out with us.
Wealth management and
Monthly installment at 1.88%.
to select the right property to buy.
1km. It's 1km. Yeah, let me check. Today we're going to talk about this topic of why do Singaporeans love to own additional properties on top of their own state property as a form of investment, and we're going to help you by breaking it down into three very simple benefits of why a lot of Singaporeans want to own an additional property as a form of investment, whether is it a rental investment strategy or is it a more mid-term investment strategy for capital appreciation, right? So let's have a look at some assumptions first before we go into the three distinct benefits. Now, having an additional property is basically like having an additional part-time business, because it's really like setting up another business. You need to manage the rental, you need to manage the purchase, you got to manage the holding on to the property on your own end as an investor. So things like your yearly property tax, you have to pay your MCST every quarterly, you have to take care of the repairs. If you rent out the property to your tenant, you have to look after the tenancy, and of course it is more like an additional set of business that you actually self-created the moment you want to invest in a property to enjoy the kind of leverage that you want to have. So the very important first thing to assume is that you want this, right? So you basically want to have another set of investment arm in your portfolio, and that will be your property investment arm. And you have to take note that more or less sometimes it becomes like a little bit like a part-time business that you more or less have to manage it, right? So let's assume that if you were to buy a property today at $1.2 million, and I want to set in some assumptions here, right? The first assumption is that you're age 35 and you can loan a maximum tenure of 30, and you decide to go for 30, meaning that by age 65 you're fully paid off the property. So later you'll find out why we want to have these assumptions, alright? Because it's for your understanding benefit. Meantime, you decide to rent out this property where TOP is a brand new property, you bought it now, 3 years later, completed TOP, you rent it out. And at the point of completion, let's just assume that your rental that you are able to rent out for the $1.2 million purchase, that you're able to rent out at $3,000. Is it a city fringe area right beside the MRT station? There's existing tenant pool, is brand new, full facility, so you can fetch a $3,000 rental for $1.2 million property. The installment based on a 2.4% interest rate for 30 years will be at $3,500 per month. Now at this point in time, I would like to have you to break down the installment into the two components and to introduce you the concept of the principal and the interest component of your monthly installment. If your monthly installment is at $3,500 based on a 2.4% interest rate, the starting principal is actually about $1,700, and then the interest portion that the bank needs to earn from you is at $1,800. So the principal and the interest will change along the way of your tenure, but to simplify for you right now, let's assume that it stays constant at $1,700 for principal, $1,800 for interest. So why is there an interest component? Because you leverage, right? So to buy a $1.2 million property, you come out with a 25% for down payment, 5% cash, 20% CPF for cash, and then the buyer's stamp duty, which the calculation is 4% minus 15,400, and that'll bring it to be about 300 over 1,000, and you loan $900,000 from the bank. So because you want to leverage, own the property right now rather than saving up to $1.2 million by the time you're already old, so you don't need to wait for that to happen. You can actually own the property right now if your income can loan a $900,000 loan from the bank. So the very first benefit that you have is that this then gives birth to a rental strategy. You now have an asset that can help you to earn rental as a form of income. So let's term the first thing as rental strategy. So going back to just now where we talk about your installment, so technically speaking, you can use the $3,000 to take care of all the interest that is used to pay to the bank. So $3,000 minus $1,800, and you still have a balance of $1,200, which should then contribute to your principal. So of course, your installment being $3,500, you rent at $3,000, there's a shortfall of $500 that you need to fulfill, and that is actually to the principal portion. So this $500 you have to top up for the entire tenure, assuming your installment stays the same, assuming your rental stays the same. Of course, your installment will fluctuate if interest rate would increase or decrease, but for the sake of calculation purpose, let's just keep it constant for now at $3,500, rental at $3,000. right? So you as an investor, you then have to top up 500 every month. Take note, you also have to factor in your MCST, which is your maintenance fee monthly. Say is at $350 per month. So that brings you to about $850. Plus, you also have a yearly property tax. Let's put that as a $2,400 per year. So having this as a leverage investment and giving birth to a rental strategy, this asset now helps you to generate rental income. And the bulk of the rental that is being received vis-a-vis the amount that you actually have to put in monthly is actually more. So you actually receive a $3,000 rental, which is actually a very, very good strategy, because let's go to the next benefit and you will see the reason why. Let's have a worst case scenario. You bought a property at age 35, 1.2 million. And we always like to do this. Let's say the property did not even appreciate at all and the price stays the same. So by the time you're age 65, the property price is stagnant at 1.2 million. Now what's going to happen? So the second benefit is forced savings. So why is there a forced savings component here? Let's break down the number. Your initial investment, 25% down payment, by your stamp duty, that brings you to $332,600. $332,600. Initial investment, you loan 900,000, and I add in your ongoing costs from here. So every month you contribute $500 towards the installment, $350 for MCST, and you paid a total of $72,000 for 30 years for property tax. All in these three components, plus minus a bit of repairs, and of course some agent fees for renting out, your total costing will then amount to about $400,000. I will call it an ongoing top up of your investment amount. Let's just put it as a costing amount. So that will be $400,000. Add back your initial investment, that will bring you to $732,600 for your total amount that you actually invested over the whole of 30 years. Right? Of course, there are some contributors that we want to say is that it is always safe to assume that you only manage to rent out 11 months out of 12 months. Just to store that 1 month in case there's vacancy, you can reserve that 1 month in the sense that you need to save some money for your repairs and your agent fee and things like that. At the end of 30 years, technically speaking, when you're age 65, your property is already fully paid. So you proceed to sell your property at age 65, you say, I want to retire, I don't want to manage the rental anymore, let's just sell it. It didn't appreciate at all. So what's going to happen? The home is sold, you walk to your law firm, the law firm pays you the check, and it's 1.2 million because there's no more loan involved. You're already 65. I mean, most of our CPF has already been fulfilled, been withdrawn. So what is then the net gain from all 30 years? Basically, all in you pump in 732K, you got back 1.2 million, and what is the revenue profit that you actually gain is 463,000. This actually came from your rental strategy, the first benefit. You still got back your 732,000, which is your forced saving amount. So your forced saving plus your rental strategy basically has created like a retirement nest for you at the age of 65, which is at $1.2 million. Now, if you did not take action when you're younger, basically some things changes as you age. Your loan tenure becomes lesser, the amount of leverage that you have becomes lesser. Of course, some people as you age, maybe your income, you change jobs and stuff like that, your ability to leverage becomes lesser. So of course now the government has changed their rulings, you have to come with 25%, the loan is only at 75%. So I would say with the TDSI and all that, it allows you to actually plan your investment more prudently. So this is what we call a forced saving strategy. In the event if your property did not appreciate, you actually have a retirement nest of $1.2 million from benefit 1 and benefit 2. Now, what is the third benefit? The third benefit is that what if the property appreciates? And it appreciates probably along the years from the day you bought it. 3 years time you appreciate, 5 years time you appreciate, or maybe in 10 years time you appreciate and you decide to exit from there, and then it's a totally different story. Or maybe after 30 years from 1.2 it became $1.6 million. So there's actually 3 components: rental strategy, for savings, and appreciation factor if it does appreciate. So these 3 reasons then gives birth to what happens to your investment property at retirement age. So we hope that you find this episode useful. Keep a lookout for the next one. See you soon.